Welcome, everybody, to the fastest show on TV, where we talk all things in the sport of drag racing. Tour cars, dragsters, four wheels, two wheels, and all the things in between. It's This Week in Drag Racing with your host, Don O'Neill.
And if you want to ride, we can do it. Take this thing out to the boonies. We can live young, free, and wild.
This week in drag racing, we get to focus on John DeFlorian, head guru at Jerry Haas Race Cars. Over 40 years in the world of motorsports, and we're going to cram it into 30 minutes. Stay tuned.
Thanks for tuning in to This Week in Drag Racing. The show is a production of Streetway Marketing and Media and DragRacer.tv. To find out more about us, or to find out how you can be a part of the show, call us today. We'd love to hear from you. Now stay tuned for more from This Week in Drag Racing.
Joining us this week on the show, someone that has a resume that probably needs to be in an encyclopedia. He's just about done everything that you can possibly do when it comes to competing at the highest levels of drag racing. And not just talking about holding onto a steering wheel, we're talking about somebody has built probably more NHRA Pro Stock championships than anybody else in the history of the sport. But he still gets up every day of the week, puts in the time, and has the passion and drive to move himself and his team across the country, still chasing this dream. And he's got the energy of an 18-year-old if you've ever seen him win. John DeFlorian, thanks for joining the show this week. Come on in and let's talk.
Thanks, Don. I'm really happy to be here. I'm looking forward to this. I think it'd be a lot of fun to chat and catch up a little bit and see where this thing goes.
First and foremost, when it comes to door slammer racing, fast door cars, you just happen to work for a guy that his name's been on the side of a lot of winning race cars. How did that relationship start at Jerry Haas Race Cars?
Well, it's kind of funny. I can tell you I've had a lot of questions asked. That's probably not one of them. Because it happened a long time ago. I've been at Jerry Haas Race Cars for right at 33 years. So it's been a long time. But I actually worked at another race car shop for about almost 5 years before I wound up going to work for Jerry. And that's kind of how that happened, is that Jerry kind of found out about me just from being around building cars at this other race car shop that I was at. And he called me a few times, and we worked something out, and I wound up going to work for him. And almost 33 years later, I'm still there doing the thing that I love to do the most, and that's build race cars. I started at Jerry's shop in 87, 82, 83 when I went to work at the other shop. And that's back when I was young, the snot-nosed kid in my early 20s, didn't really know a whole lot of anything. And, I was very fortunate to be able to pursue this, and everything worked out really well. I would have never thought at the time. I went to school to be a machinist. I worked in a machine shop, which I enjoyed. But my passion was cars. So I really wanted to try to figure out a way to put those two things together. And fortunately, it worked out to where this car deal, I was able to use those talents from that in building race cars. So it's been great. It's been an amazing ride. I would have never thought when I got into building cars. You got to remember back then, most of your race car shops were more of like, a backyard type shop for the most part. And I would have never thought then that it could have turned out to be as good as it wound up being. It's been a great career. I still get up every day and go to work as excited as I did when I first started. I can't wait to get there and go and do the thing I love to do, and that's build these cars. And yeah, I've been very fortunate, very blessed to be able to do what I do.
Well, they say that if you're passionate about something, that you'll never work a day in your life. For 33 years, I would venture to say that you've definitely found your passion when it comes to race cars.
There's no doubt about that. Actually, I've lived by that motto my whole life as far as working, because you're right. When you get up and go and do something you love and you're passionate about, you're not working. I joke about this all the time, but it's true. I say, if I wasn't doing this for a living, I'd still be doing it because I love it. That's what I enjoy doing. When I get off of work, I come home. I know people probably think I'm out of my mind, but I go out to my garage and work on my race car, work on my stuff. It's really the thing that drives me. I love doing it more than anything, and never been into, hunting or fishing or boating. There's nothing wrong with that. It just wasn't never my interest. My interest was these cars and going racing and being at the racetrack and, trying to figure out what to do to make these things faster and make our operation better and faster. Because just as I said a minute ago, all these teams that you race against, they're out there working as well and trying to make their stuff faster. And so you want to try to always stay ahead. So that means if you're going to do it, you're going to have success at it, you got to dedicate every bit of time you can to it. And even time that you don't have, you got to dedicate to it.
Well, you mentioned that you started out in a machine shop. Now, was there somebody in your family that kind of drove you in the direction of the automotive world?
Well, that's really funny because nobody in my family was into racing or cars at all, other than a car was just a means of transportation from one point to the other. And for whatever reason, when I was a kid, I was, 7, 8 years old, and I'm out there and I'm, taking my dad's lawnmower apart, taking the rototiller apart, and putting it together, trying to figure out what made it work, because it was just interesting to me, is that why and how these things work. So that was what kind of started my interest in anything that ran, anything that moved. And so I wound up building my first mini bike when I think I was around 10. And I just never lost that desire. I just always wanted to be working on something and either figuring out how it worked or figuring out how to make it work. And so my dad thought I was out of my mind, as did most of the people around me, because they weren't into cars. And when I got into racing and into cars, they didn't get it. But, it was just a thing that it grabbed my attention when I was really young, and it just never let go. And I've never had any desire for it to let go. I really thoroughly enjoy doing this. I can't see myself ever doing anything other than this, to be honest.
What did your dad say when you said, "Hey, I'm going to go work in the automotive field, a machine shop, or I'm going to go work on race cars"? Was there that conversation when he looked at you and went, "What are you doing?"
That's way funnier than you even have any idea. And I'll give it to you kind of brief. So, obviously, I was a teenager. I got my first car when I was 15 years old, which, on the side note, I still own the very first car I ever bought, which was a 69 Plymouth Roadrunner. Bought it when I was 15 and a half years old. I still got it today. That being said, but so my interest started with these cars and all that, right? And as I go through school, cars is all it is that I want to do. And when I told my dad that I was going to go to work, actually went to school to be a machinist, he said, "Okay, that's great. That'll be a career that you can make a living at, and raise a family, and so on and so forth." So, which I did. I went to school, went to tech school for a couple of years, and got out of there, went to work in a machine shop, like I said, and did that for a while. And I found myself always wishing. And what I mean by that is I was always wishing it was Friday and always wishing it wasn't Sunday. And I'm thinking, as a young guy in my early 20s, thinking, well, this ain't no way to live life. I don't want to live the next 40, 50, whatever years I got on this planet wishing my life away, because, I didn't really care for what I was doing. And at that point, I decided I want to go and try to do something with race cars, try to get a job building race cars. And that's exactly what I did. I went to work at a race car shop. It used to be called Gateway Race Cars. The guy that owned it was Gene Lynch. He gave me my first opportunity to go to work. I went to work for him. I took a $3 an hour pay cut to go down there and working at a machine shop I was at that time. But it was just something I was really interested in. But I had this big grand plan, right? I thought, well, I'm going to go to work there, and I'll work there for like 6 months or a year or so. and then learn what I need to learn so I can work on my own cars and fix my own cars up right. And then I'll go back and get, quote, a real job. I went to work there my very first day. And this is a true story. I'm telling you, I live it every day. I went there, wasn't there 15 minutes the first day, and I said to myself, if I got to flip hammers at night to pay my bills, I'm going to build race cars during the day. And I knew it. That was where I was meant to be, and I never looked back. And fortunately, it worked out really well. It worked out to be a great thing, and it became something that you could actually make a pretty good living in eventually. It didn't at that time, but it did turn into that where you can make a decent living and kind of live your dream. I had a lot of friends of mine that were they made really good money, but they hated their jobs. They just hated them. And to me, I was like, that's just no way to live, because you spend so much of your time at work, and with the people you work with, you spend more time with them than you do with your own family. So for me, it was very important to have a job that I was really passionate about, and this was it. So I've been very lucky.
When did you get your first win in a drag race?
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're going way back. I told you a little bit ago about my first car being a 69 Roadrunner. I started racing it at Gateway, which is called Worldwide Technology now, but it was Gateway back then at the old facility that actually ran in the opposite direction, which the new track runs in now. And that would have been, you're back in 76 is when that was. And I just went over there initially I just wanted to go out on the racetrack. I went up and down the track on a Wednesday night. They called it, open Wednesdays, where you could go and just make runs on the racetrack. And as I was there, obviously, you found out about being able to go and compete on Saturday nights. And then another racetrack was called Peevely, and they raced on Sunday. So that's kind of what started for me. So back in 76, it was when I started drag racing, and I think I got my first race win would have been 77 at Gateway. And that car, which I just ran in, it was a bracket race car. And I just bracket raced it, and that kind of also is what set the hook, though, because once you got the taste of going down the racetrack, you just couldn't get over it. You wanted more. So that's kind of where it started at.
You started as a bracket racer in 77, and now you're driving 6 seconds, 220 plus miles an hour. When did that change take place for you?
Well, again, it started back in 76 when I started racing my street car, and I always wanted to go faster. That was the thing. I love going down the racetrack, but I wanted to go faster. And through a number of years, I had great opportunities. I had guys that believed in me, gave me a chance to drive their cars, and it went from there. I wound up doing a lot of kind of some outlaw racing down south, and that was pretty interesting. It was a lot of fun, it led into the pro mod stuff. I ran the pro mod, my pro mod Corvette, but even before that, some friends of mine, they had cars that I drove, and we ran in some outlaw and some kind of local quick 8 stuff, which ultimately led into me building my Corvette, which I ran pro nitrous in the 80RL. And it just progressed. Back when I was running the pro nitrous car, the Corvette, that deal kind of came full circle, kind of came to an end, and I had a real good friend of mine who we were building race cars for, Kevin Bialco. He came to me, and I hadn't been racing for about a year and a half or so, and he came to me and said, "What do we need to do to get you back racing again?" And he said, "We can get you a motor for your Corvette or whatever you want to do." And my wife and I talked about it and decided he wanted a pro Mount Motor Pro Stock car, which we built him, and we decided let's do that. Let's build a Mount Motor car. That way we can have a 2-car team, and we can double up in the data collection. And that's what started the whole Mount Motor Pro Stock thing, really. So if it wasn't for Kevin and Karen Bialco, I wouldn't be where I'm at today with the Mount Motor Pro Stock thing for sure.
Is there moments where you sit back and go, okay, if it stops right now and I never drive again, I'm fulfilled?
Well, it's funny you say that, and I'll tell you why. Because I feel like for me personally, I've been blessed well beyond what I deserve. And I'm not kidding you when I say that. For whatever reason, the good Lord's given me these unbelievable opportunities, and I'm so grateful and thankful for every one of them and all the people that have helped me along the way for that to happen. If it all ended today and I didn't get to get in the race car again, I'd be devastated because it's the only thing I want to do. However, I have to be honest and say that, hey, I got to do way more than a guy like me should have ever been able to do. And what I mean by that is that, I grew up in a very extremely poor family, so there wasn't any money for this. So for me to ever think about going racing and having race cars and all that stuff, that wasn't even a thought, wasn't even a dream. I mean, there was no possibility of that happening. But as life does, certain opportunities come along, and if you want something, bad enough, and you're willing to work hard for it, you can make some things happen. But to get to this point, you got to have a lot of luck, and you got to have people that believe in you. And I did. I was very fortunate, and I'm very grateful that I did, because those people that believed in me are the reason I got to do what I've got to do. So again, to answer that question, yeah, if it all ended today, I'd have to look back and say I've been blessed beyond what I deserve. But it would be devastating, because the only thing I really want to do is be in that car. I love being in the driver's seat. I love racing. I like competition. There's nothing better than going at the racetrack, and I pull into these pit areas, and I'm parking against next to guys that's got 18-wheelers, multi-million-dollar operations. They got more money than they can spend, and it's all I can do to try to scrub a couple of bucks together to just be able to get to the race. But there's no greater feeling for me personally to come pulling in pits, park next to those guys, and go out there and outrun them. And that's the goal for me. And that doesn't always happen, but I can promise you it's not from lack of effort, because when I roll on the racetrack, my intentions are to go out and try to be the number one qualifier, try to win every round and win the race. And anything less than that is a failure on my part, meaning that I didn't succeed in what the objective was. It doesn't mean that I'm a failure. It just means I go back home and I work even harder. But there's so much reward that comes from going out there and racing against those guys that have unlimited budgets, where I don't even have a budget. You have to have money to have a budget. I don't have enough money to have a budget. The little bit of money that I'm able to scrape together, I use everything I got and some to go and do this. And I've had, again, along the ways, I've had some great help for some great people, So, yes, in answer to your question, I'd be lost if I didn't get to do this anymore. But I would never be disappointed. I couldn't look back with any regret, because I got to do more and accomplish more than I ever would have dreamed in my wildest dreams. I get up every day to go to work, again, because I love what I do. I absolutely love welding these cars together, building these cars. It's truly a passion. But I go to work and try to earn a living and pay my bills off, but to go race ultimately, because I really want to race. I really want to be at the track racing. And so everything I do is towards that goal, is to be at the racetrack, to be out there and be racing. So yeah, as long as I can, good Lord willing, I'll race until I physically can't get in the car, or I don't have the funds to be able to do it. I will continue to race at whatever level I can. If something comes along at some point in time where I won't be able to participate at this level, I'll race whatever I can find. I bracket race still now. I've got a friend of mine that has a bracket car that he lets me drive, and I go and I drive it on weekends when I'm in town. Just because, again, I love to be in the car, and I love to be going on the racetrack, and it doesn't matter if it's a 8-second car, it's a 6-second car. I just like racing. But that's the objective for me, to get up every day, to go work hard, take care of what I got to take care of, but to try to hopefully be able to go to the racetrack and race at this level and compete at this level. We've built a lot of race cars. We're well north of about 650 race cars since we've been building cars at Jerry Haas Race Cars. I've seen some guys that were extremely talented and just couldn't get there for whatever reason. And usually the reason is, unfortunately, it's usually money. And that's the bad part about it, because it takes so much money to do this. But I have seen a lot of guys that are very, very talented that didn't get to that level. But I will tell you this also. There's a lot of these guys that go out and race that don't get the exposure. They're racing in some little outlaw tracks or match racing or whatever, racing, some quick 8 race, whatever it is, that are very successful, done really, really well, that just never got the recognition that they probably deserve. And there's some race drivers out there had the opportunity to drive a pro mod car or pro stock car, they could be as good, if not better, than any driver out there, but just didn't get that opportunity.
What are the goals for John DeFlorian Racing in 2021?
Our goals are every year we roll into the season with the goal that I think every racer does, and that is to go out and try to win that championship for that year in whatever sanctioning body they might be participating in. And that, I think that applies to everybody. It most certainly applies to us. Our objective is to go out and try to run the best we can, and again, try to be top of the pile, try to be number one qualifier. Try to win the rounds, win the race, and then hopefully at the end of the year, win the championship. And this year here is kind of an unusual year. We came off of 20, which was insane. We lost so many races. We didn't get the race. I only had my car at the racetrack 4 times for the whole entire year with the whole coronavirus situation. We roll into this year now, which is another weird deal because we've got 3 different sanctioning bodies that are going to be racing Mountain Motor Pro Stock. And that's kind of a bad thing, because what's happening with that is it'll have a lot of divisional take place, guys that'll choose to go one place or another. And unfortunately, when you've only got, there's literally probably about 23 to 26 legit Mountain Motor Pro Stock cars in the country. And if you divide those up amongst 3 different sanctioning bodies, none of those sanctioning bodies are going to have as good a success as they could if all the guys could participate at all of them. And unfortunately, that won't be the case. So it's going to be, we'll have to see how it works out. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to go. I know that our objective is to go out and compete at the highest level we can compete at and try to win races and try to win a championship at the end of the year. And, good Lord willing, that'll happen, but we'll have to see. It won't be for lack of effort. I can promise you that.
John, you've won a lot of events at a lot of different associations and a lot of different cars. Give me the one event in your current car in a Mountain Motor Pro Stock competition that stands out the most to you.
Don, I can't thank you enough for asking that question. I can tell you exactly where it was. It was San Antonio, Texas, 2014. It was a week after I lost my mom. She had passed away, and we ran that race out there. And she was riding with me. I have no doubt about it. We won that race, and we set both ends of the record. We set the quarter-mile ET record and the speed record, all the same event. And that's one race that I will never forget ever. It had a lot of emotion to it because of what had gone on. It was very difficult that she had literally just passed away the week before, and to try to get out and go and run this race and have my head clear and make sure I did my job was tough. But I also knew that my mom was so proud of me for chasing my dream and doing what I wanted to do, and there was no way in the world I wasn't going to go, because I knew she would want me to be there doing what I love to do so much. But that would be the race that will always be right there at the very top.
I talked to one of your competitors a few weeks ago, and we talked about the 3-second run in a Mountain Motor Pro Stock. Where does John DeFlorian fall on getting that 3-second slip?
Well, I can tell you right now, that barrier has been there. That's been on my radar for a long, long time. We've been fortunate enough to be to run really fast and be one of the faster cars a lot of times. That 3-second thing is really important. A lot of people don't know this, but it has been done already, but it wasn't under official conditions. It was under test conditions, and Jeff Dobbins did it, but it wasn't recognized because it wasn't under the race conditions. It was under test. So that 3-second barrier is still out there to be had as far as official record, and I probably want that record as bad as any of them. With the things that we have done and races that we have won and some of the success we've had, that right there is one that I really want a desperate way. There's a lot of good cars out there. There's a lot of fast cars out there, and guys that are capable. But it's going to take. You're going to have everything just exactly right. I mean, track conditions, the weather conditions, the car conditions, the driver. I mean, everything has to be dead on for that to happen. Do I think it'll happen this year? I do think it probably will. Again, it's going to be critical as far as track and weather. So if you're going to see it happen, it'll either be real early in the season or it'll be at the very end of the season because of the weather and the tracks. But that is one that's high on my list of things to try to accomplish. I would really hope that we could pull that off and be the first car to do it, but under official conditions. But there's a lot of other guys that are shooting for it too. And, don't let anybody fool you when they tell you that, well, we're just here just to, try to win, a round or just qualify or whatever. That's BS, because any real competitor, real pro stock driver, he wants to be that guy. He wants to be that guy that does it, because you'll forever have that title, and it will never be taken away from you. And there's only one other barrier after that, and that would be the 5-second deal with quarter mile, and that's a long, long ways away. We're not even close to that. We're nearly 2/10 off of that. So that barrier that's in the foreseeable future is that 3-second, and there's a lot of guys out there that have very good equipment and have the right people in place to be able to do it. It's just going to take getting that thing right. And I've heard guys say, well, when we come to the track, we're not trying to swing for the fences and we're not trying for – that's BS. Because these guys, when you're out there and you have that opportunity, you're going for it. And if you're not, then you probably shouldn't be there. I mean, in other words, the objective is in this class is to be the fastest car. You want to try to be the fastest, most competitive, and most consistent car, because you want to race and win rounds, and you want to win races. I don't think anybody goes to the racetrack just to be there at this point. They're there to win, and anything short of winning is not succeeding. So one of those objectives as a driver is to be that 3-second guy, and that's very high on our list.
Well, you brought up the 5-second zone for Mountain Motor Pro Stock in St. Louis earlier this year and got into the teens. Is that where we're going to see Mountain Motor Pro Stock cars as far as the quarter mile go for the next couple of years?
Yeah, we're a long ways away from anybody running in the fives in a Mountain Motor Pro Stock car. We went for it was over 10 years trying to get a car to get into the teens. Okay, and that St. Louis race just happened to be what I was talking about earlier. The conditions were there, the track was there, everything was there to run in the teens, and we had it in our hands to do it as well. We happened to be one of the first cars out in that one and only session that took place in St. Louis, and we blew it. I mean, I'll just straight up tell you, we blew it. We were way too conservative, way too soft, and when I let the clutch out, I knew I was done, because it just ran through the clutch. The shift light stayed on until, I think it was third gear before I finally got to go off. And I knew I was toast at that point. Then the only thing I could do was get to the other end of the track and hope that somebody else didn't do it. Now, I knew there was a couple other cars that could possibly do that. And at that point, all you can do is set. And then, and JR ran that team, 17 with a 9. That was a really impressive, great run. And I felt like we completely let that get away from us. We should have had it. When we went back and looked at the data and ran all of our numbers, that very run that I made should have been low 19, maybe a high 18, but a low 19 for sure. And it wasn't, but it was there. It was certainly there. And you've seen other cars run well. Trevor went a 23, so there was some good laps made, but the weather and the conditions, everything were there for teams. So I think if we could have all had another shot at that track that weekend, I think that there could have been even a 16 ran out there. And probably right at 229 because it was that good. So I'll be anxious to see this year if we get some of those good conditions and be able to let those things run through the quarter mile and see what somebody does.
Who are the people that are impactful and influential in your program?
Boy, I'm gonna tell you what. If there was a bigger statement, I don't know what it'd be. When you go to the racetrack, it takes so many people to do this. I work on the car constantly to try to be ready to go, but when you get to the track, it takes people to make it happen. And Jeff Graver has been on with me since we started this thing, and I couldn't do it without him. I mean, he's there to do any and everything. He helps me in every way. He helps me, obviously, a little bit financially, but he helps me in being there and helping me make sure that I'm ready and prepared. I know that he's doing his job, but Jeff, Jason, I mean, he's more anal about the engine stuff than I would be if I was doing it. But he takes care of all the motor stuff and makes sure that's all right. And anything else needs to be done. I mean, he's on top of it. Couldn't do it without them, obviously. My wife, Leanne, I depend on her because she takes care of so much stuff. A lot of the computer stuff she takes care of. She takes care of making sure all the flights are booked and hotels and rental cars and all that stuff. And she helps me get all my safety gear on and get suited up and be ready to go and be prepared mentally to go down the racetrack. My daughter, she's been a big part of this program for a very, very long time. And she backs me up. She also plays every role that there is that has to be done. Whatever needs to be done, she takes care of all the social media stuff. So there is a small army behind me. And then Ryan Sull, he's the crew chief. And if it weren't for him, we'd be lost. He does an incredible job making sure that we make the right calls and get the car right and ready. So with all these folks that are around me, they all make it easy for me to do the job I got to do. And there's no way I could do it without them. And I can never thank them enough. And I can't even tell you how much fun it is to be there with them through good times and bad times. It doesn't matter because we're there no matter how it goes. But, man, when it's good times, we have a great time. And it's really a family. I mean, we've done this together for so long. It's really a family deal. And it's tremendous. I could never thank them enough, though. I got to shout out to them guys because they're amazing.
So moving forward into 2021, John, tell everybody where they can follow along with John DeFlorian Racing as you're out here chasing what could be a championship in 3 different racing associations.
Yeah, that's true. If you would like to follow us, it's John DeFlorian Racing. And we would really appreciate you, throwing us a like. The more support we can get by, folks coming out there and following us and following our particular program, the better off. But it's also following the class. We want to see the class build and continue to grow. And so that's why when you get to go to these races, you're trying to get people to come out and see what that's all about. Like real quick, when we went to the first NHRA stuff, we had people coming over going, what are these things? They had never seen these cars before. They knew they were pro stock, but they were way faster. We're basically 3/10 faster than an NHRA car. And so these people were really excited. And that's what we're wanting to do. We want to introduce people to these cars and let them see these things close and see what they're all about, because we are naturally aspirated and we have hood scoops and all that stuff, and they're exciting cars and it's an exciting class. And to get back to your point, yeah, there's 3 different sanctioning bodies that championships could potentially be won in. So it's going to be a real interesting year. But follow us if you will. and throw us a like out there. And if more importantly, if you come to the races, come by and see us. I love to say hello to the fans. I love to talk to them. I don't rope my pits off, never have, never will. I want people to come in and see the cars. That's what happened to me when I was a kid. I got to walk up and get to look at one of these cars close up, and I was hooked. And I remember that very vividly. So in order for our sport to survive and thrive, we have to have the youth come in. They got these young folks and young kids got to come in and want to run these cars, want to race these cars. And so my effort is I want them to come in. I want to show them the cars firsthand, close up, and introduce myself to them and introduce them to this sport that I love so much and this class that I love so much. So most certainly, if you come to the races this year, come by and say hello. We'd love to see you and love to chat with you.
John, I look forward to seeing you and your team in 2021 across the country, lighting up scoreboards and turning on win lights.
Well, we do as well. It's going to be an exciting year. I feel pretty confident that we're going to see a lot of good racing this year, and it should be a great time for everyone. And look forward to seeing you at the track too, Don. I mean, I think we'll have a lot of fun this year.
Thanks for taking time out, John, and we'll see you soon.
I can't thank you enough. Thank you guys very much for having me on, and this has been a great time. So anytime I can, if you got any spare time you want to kill, just give me a yell. I'll chew your ear off.
You can count on that, John.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to This Week in Drag Racing. The show is a production of Streetway Marketing and Media and DragRacer.tv. To find out more about us or to find out how you can be a part of the show, call us today. We'd love to hear from you. Now stay tuned for more from This Week in Drag Racing.
This week with John DeFlorian, we learned a lot of things that people will go through to be successful, just to be in the world of motorsports. When you make a statement like you'll flip burgers to pay your bills so you can go race, that's commitment. It's dedication. Here it is, fast forward from 1977. John DeFlorian is still getting it done with the passion and energy of an 18-year-old, building some of the best race cars in the country with his family, traveling around the country, trying to win races, chasing the dream, but yet still appreciating where he came from and where he is. Again, characteristics and values that as society goes, we should be instilling in our kids and our loved ones and the people around us. Hope that you got that emotion and passion and feeling from John as we talked to him tonight. And I hope that you can look at your own circle and pass that on and share that within your circle. And again, come be part of our world of motorsports. We want to see you at the racetrack. See you next week.